and Zora Margaret Woods. It was her mother's 19th birthday. I know it was a very special time. For her first 5 years, my mother was a very social child and at times a little intense for other children. She was very enthusiastic. The Leo came out early, and she frequently was so eager to play with them, the neighborhood children, that they would hide under the bed from her because they were scared. When she was 5, her father went off to war in the Korean conflict, and his claim to fame is that he drove General MacArthur around in a Jeep. But he saw many things and he did not come back the same. And so he met with alcoholism to cope. And the family moved frequently, but there was always a local church on the corner. And she would walk to whatever was the closest church, and that was her church. And I think that was one of the things that rooted her in the drawing the larger circle and having a interfaith outlook. And I love that she is here at Lieberman Chapel because we're in a Jewish temple and we believe that all paths that lead to God are good. And so it was open on Sundays, and so she wanted to run it and have church here. And I thought it would be so great to have her service, her final Sunday service. I know you have all heard about, probably about her first sermon at 11, when my grandpa promised to build her and her little sister a playhouse, and he only got the bottom foundation, and then he just filled it with sand and said it's a sandbox. And so she had gone, and she was very moved by the topic at church that day about the fishes and the loaves. And so she decided to tell it to the neighborhood children, and she emptied all the sand out and tilted the sandbox up, and that was her first pulpit. And to those that listened, got peanut brittle. So if you listen today, I did buy 12 pounds of peanut brittle, and it is out there. So make sure that as long as you're not allergic, everybody gets a piece. She attended Canoga Park High School, and she was a cheerleader. I know this because she frequently cheered the cheer of the cheerleader to me if I was grumpy. Bobo skiddy dog. Which diddly-o dog, Bobo skiddy dog. Canoga HS. She would like go on and on. She was also social in high school, and she had many suitors, and I found a page out of her diary that I wanted to read to you. From 1959. So the first one is not so, like, today I played basketball a while with Richie. And then she says, Paul came over. This is not Richie. Paul came over tonight, and we made out. And he told me that he loved me, and he looked like he was going to cry. This was like pure gold going through her. Today, I didn't do much. I was worn out. But tonight, Paul came over, and he told me that he loved me, and I told him that I loved him. But I also love Jim, too. She worked at Pat Bell. She worked at the phone company, where it didn't last long. And so when I got fired from my first job, she was like, oh, I've been fired a bunch of times, and she would tell me. And then she worked at United Airlines as a stewardess, and back then you weren't allowed to be married, and so everyone would just say, oh, I love to She went skiing with a friend, a coworker from United at Bass Lake, and she met this really cute boy water skiing, and 3 months later they were married. And she took me to Bass Lake, and she was like, this is the raft or the dock. This is the dock where I met your father. And then she goes, this is the dock where I met your father. She was sentimental. And we found literally dozens and dozens and dozens of boxes of all the cards that you ever sent her. I mean, like, a lot. So anything you ever sent her, any note. Oh, letter. Yes, everything. She saved it. She was very sentimental. My dad, they were married for 5 years before my mom decided that she wanted to have a baby. And my dad thought that there were too many starving children in the world. And then 9 months later, here I came. They discovered religious science together and practiced the principles in their marriage daily. I found letters from my dad talking about their marriage and his way of life. And they really do attribute when I was 3 days old, they found out that he had cancer, terminal cancer in his lungs, and he had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And they really attribute this way of life to him going into remission almost immediately and having a wonderful life for my first 5 years. She graduated from the School of Ministry. She always says I took class because she was pregnant with me. She took every class she could. And then I found her practitioner certificate and her marriage certificate, her ministerial certificate and her ordination. Some of it is out there. And they opened the first church, Science of Mind Church of Positive Thinking in the Slantic Florida Valley in October of 1975. And then my dad came out of remission. And so for 2 years, they went in and out of the hospital. And then he finally made his transition July 11th of 1977. His favorite cousin was in the first row. We call her Aunt Mel, but I say, this is my dad's favorite cousin, but we call her Aunt Mel every time. We try to shorten it. So she lost the love of her life early, and over this time, my aunt and my grandma had decided to become drinking buddies, and my grandma had stopped. Even though he severely beat my mom repeatedly, she was able to, 1, break the cycle of abuse, and 2, let him back in and forgive him. And so then we were estranged from my grandma and my aunt, and we hadn't had a relationship with my grandmother. And my grandma and my aunt called every church, every place of employment, every ministerial school that she went to, and backed her. They followed her. And so she had a hard time sometimes with intimacy and letting people in. And so that was just a part of her that most people don't know. And they would call and leave terrible messages on our voicemails, the recorders. And so, but somehow she just kept forgiving them, and they were at my high school graduation, and I remember them being there, and she really did practice these principles. She needed a change after my dad died, and she answered the call for the San Diego Church of Religious Science. And she was there, which is now National University bought it, but it was a great church. And then in that time, I was like in elementary I didn't have to get up early. Sometimes maybe just half of the second service. But she always made sure that I was taken care of. And she made sure that I had a youth advisor, I was in youth programs, and learning these principles. Along the way, she did remarry, and I became a little sister, and then I became a big sister. During her first marriage after my dad, they went to Coronado on honeymoon. And so when she divorced him, we moved there because she loved it so much, and she raised me in Coronado. And what a blessing that was for me. And then when she remarried again, she tried again. I got a little brother. And my big brother and my little brother are both. Okay, wait.
We didn't practice.
In 2009, she met the love of her life for a second time, and his name was Patrick Neil Tyler. And he's the best thing that happened to our family ever. And they had some shenanigans like you wouldn't believe. And she always taught him about peace and love, and how to swim in her pool, and to play tugboat. And she came to his birthdays, even if we didn't go to the state. She would come, and I would be like, it's like 30 screaming kids, are you sure you want to come? And she was like, yeah, I want to go. I'm like, okay, pass out these potato chips. And I will always be grateful for those times. She was our Mima, and we loved her. And the last thing I'd like to tell you is that the last thing that she said to me on my phone was a quote by Vincent Van Gogh that said, "Things that are done in love are done well." And it said, "Just love." And I think that's, we gotta let go of all of those other things and just love. And so that's what I had engraved on her. Just love. And I feel like everything else kind of falls away because that's what she taught me the most. And I just want to read you this last thing that she wrote. When I experienced the energy of the Coachella Valley, it felt like I was wafted in at the curb of the 111 coming into Palm Springs. It was as though a portal opened and I was allowed entry as I moved through the energy field. Then, as quickly as the portal opened, it closed and I was welcomed into a land of awesome beauty and mystery. What an amazing journey it's been. When I received the call and was offered the position, I told Dr. Terry Cole Whitaker that I would meditate on it and come to Palm Springs to get a sense of the lay of the land. She accepted that call, and she wrote that there is no other profession on the planet that deals more intimately with the human condition than that of a minister. In the now 46 years of my ministry, I have walked into hell for a heavenly cause. I have held the hands of many taking their last breath. I have found myself in courtrooms, morgues, ICU units, rallies, standing for human rights, emergency rooms, gravesides, newsrooms, and wiping the tears of the grief-stricken. The joyous occasions have found their way into the very fabric of my being as well. Officiating the wedding ceremonies, christenings, rites of passage ceremonies, home blessings, and full moon rituals. Yes, the mystical element of the cosmos that created the heavens and the earth. My ministry has taken me all over the world presenting on world peace and the circle of life. I have felt the blessing of an amazing and full life in the 46 years serving in the Utah movement. And that was just September of last year that she wrote this. She was the first in Palm Springs as a ministry to put two men hugging on her logo. She was very, very interested in human rights, and that you could love, and love was love. And it didn't matter. It was very brave, I feel like, of her 20 years ago to put on her logo. I just feel like, you know, she was ahead of her time. And she felt very strongly about human rights and was very involved in the DAP. And every year we would take Easter baskets over and she would hug and kiss everyone and let them know that, you know, they weren't alone. And I feel like she ended the cycle of abuse. She stood up for human rights. She stood up for what was right in this world and what she believed in, and no regrets whatsoever. Thank you.
To the supermarket flyers from the windowsill.
My son Tyler has been looking up the saddest songs possible so we can just sob. I have to say that this song is dedicated from him, and it's called Supermarket Flowers by Ed Sheeran. And the lyrics are in your program because they're just so spot on, and so tissues available. Thank you.
Through the day of tea from the cup, packed up the photo album that you had made, memories of a life that's been loved. Took the carrot world, suit cars and stuffed animals, put the old ginger beer down the sink. Dad always told me, don't you cry when you're down, but Mum, there's a tear every time that I blink. Oh, I'm in pieces, it's tearing me up, but I know a heart that's broke is a heart that's been loved. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you back, you'll say hallelujah, you're home. Fluff the pillows, make the bed, stack the chairs up, folded your nightgowns neatly in a case. John said he dried them, put his hand on my cheek, and wiped a tear from the side of my face. Now that I see the world as you did, 'cause I know a life with love is a life that's been lived. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you see the person I have become. Spread your wings and